okay, the world is going this way. Everything has become more connected and everything has become more decentralized. And so why would money be any different? It's just going to take a long time to get there. I feel like I am super curious about like, all right, like what rabbit holes can I go down? And I just follow where the smart people go.
What's going on, everybody? So today I'm doing a two-part interview with an insanely skilled podcaster. The rate at which he is climbing these podcast charts is extraordinary. I'm talking with Danny Miranda. He's currently number 38 on the Entrepreneur podcast. He's done over 300 episodes and is constantly hosting big names. We're talking Gary Vee, Tom Bilyeu, Iman Gadzhi, and a ton more. We'll be talking about building a brand and skill set. So whether you're in crypto, you're podcasting, or trying to grow your following on Twitter, we'll be discussing the mindset and the time frame to be successful. So with that being said, let's just get right to it. So Danny, what are your thoughts about podcasting, Web3, and how this could potentially really change a lot of business models that exist today?
Absolutely big question, and I'm excited to be here today. It's interesting because with the podcast, I haven't dive too deep into the Web3 world in terms of monetizing it or building a Web3 community through the podcast. So the answer to your question is, one, I think podcasting is just rising. I think 18% of people in the United States have listened to a podcast daily, but 83% listen to the radio. And that was like in 2021. So if you think about those numbers and you're like, okay, well, how is it that 18% are listening to podcasts and 83 are listening to radio? It's like, how can that not flip in some respect or drastically change over the next 10, 20 years? So that's like what I think broadly about podcasting. Web3 is a movement where people can get access to tokens and people can get access to the ability to buy ownership in a creator in some way. And I don't think we've actually seen how that's going to play out long term yet. We haven't seen that manifested over a long enough time horizon, but I'm excited by the possibilities and I'm attracted to the energy in that space. So there's a little bit of the thoughts, but happy to dive into any of it.
For sure. So, okay, you're a content creator, right? You definitely got this traction going. What would stop you from, let's say, creating like an NFT collection where people who are your super fans, they're watching Danny. They're like, you know what? Danny's already on the come up. He's rising up. He's got his collection, and then he offers unique perks, very creative perks where, let's say, somebody can actually be on your podcast. Maybe it's like a raffle out of 100. Or if you do have your Madison Square Garden event, they got that front row seats because they were there from the very beginning. They were your super fans.
Yeah, no, those are absolutely great ideas. And it's like, it definitely can be created, but there's no easy way for people who they don't know what a wallet is. They haven't bought an NFT before. It's not like a lot of people will know inherently how to do that or that they could do that or the benefits of it. And that's where it's up to me, like, to educate people too. But I don't think that I want to devote the energy to educate people at scale to do that right now, because I know that takes a lot of time and effort as well. So I'm like, all right, let me just continue building the podcast, which I think is going to grow. And maybe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, when it becomes easier for more people to get involved with that ecosystem, then I'm going to devote myself to creating some tokens like that.
What do you think is required in order for people to have that easy access and know how to do it? Because on one side, definitely makes sense. You want to grow your following, so then when that opportunity does hit, it's just a very easy transition. But if you could be the big person that gets that started, like your podcast goes up and you have an NFT that is really successful, then all of a sudden people are going to be looking at you like, wow, you were the first, you have that first mover advantage, essentially.
100%. But like, in order to actually do that, I would need to explain to people, like, this isn't a scam, because NFT has gotten so harmed in people's minds by the bad actors, which is what's going to happen whenever a new space comes out.
Sure.
It's like, right now, I feel like I need to let the dust settle a little bit in order to figure out where my next move in the NFT world is going to be. And it makes me feel upset because I came into NFTs in 2021 with such good intentions and like so excited about what this meant for the future of creators.
Yeah.
But then after getting into it for some time, I was like, oh no, like this space needs a lot of time to develop, to mature. And maybe it's already there. I just haven't been as involved with it. But I'm excited to see how it plays out. And I will be paying very close attention to when those things start to happen and when those platforms come about for creators that are more used. I think like Rally, the token company, just went out of business. So even though Rally is, and for those who are unfamiliar with Rally, it was just a platform for people to invest in different creators and giving creators different tokens so that people could buy and sell that creator's stock almost as a token. But even though that idea is correct, I don't think it clearly wasn't the right time for that to occur. And maybe it's in 5 years or 10 years or next month that a platform comes about that people are really excited to invest in creators as tokens. So we'll see. It's just so early for all this stuff and it makes me so excited, but I just want to be thoughtful about how I'm approaching it, and the tools aren't there yet, and as well as the public sentiment.
Deep. So, okay, how did you get into crypto? Because when I started looking at your podcast, I thought like, oh, hey, you're really good with networking with people, talking to people, right? And then all of a sudden you have this huge crypto knowledge. Like, how did this start?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's a huge crypto knowledge. It definitely is a deep understanding of like, okay, the world is going this way. Everything has become more connected and everything has become more decentralized. And so why would money be any different? It's just going to take a long time to get there, I feel like. And it started because, I don't know, in 2016, I started playing around with it and started looking into it. And then later, I graduated college and saw that all the smart people were talking about crypto in some respect. And then I was just following the energy on Twitter. And in Twitter, it was like 2020, 2021, people were talking about NFTs. And I was like, what is this? This is super interesting. Like something's going on here. A lot of energy is going into the space from a lot of smart people separately. And so I think that even though I'm not super knowledgeable about it, I am super curious about like, all right, like what rabbit holes can I go down? And I just follow where the smart people go. I think that's like one of the things that I've gotten good enough at is like looking at where are the smart people focusing their time and attention. That's normally what people are going to be doing in 10 years. So that's kind of where it started for me.
Do you feel like podcasting is in a sense decentralizing from like major news channels, for example?
1000%. I mean, podcasting is just a way for people to communicate in a more realistic and a fair way for anyone to distribute. And there's no who's the owner of podcasting, right? That's the beautiful thing about it. It's like there's none. It doesn't exist. And so anyone can create a podcast and anyone can put their voice out there. And that's part of what has attracted me so much to the internet, to creating blogs when I was a kid, to starting a podcast. It's just like anyone can do this. So like why not me? And it's played out really interestingly over the last, what has it been, 2.5 years.
So I need to ask you, because you've been doing this now you're coming up on 3 years, right?
Yeah.
And you said like your first 2 years, like you put in a lot of work, a lot of effort, but you didn't see much traction. Now this is your 3rd year and you're finally hitting the come up, right? But what about people that are looking to be content creators and they're like, okay, I want to do this, I want to put in my time, but how can they support themselves financially? Because I'm very curious how you're doing that, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. So how it started for me was I just lived in my parents' house for 2 years, basically, just grinding away, figuring it out, like, all right, like the expenses are very low and I can just build this podcast or try to create this podcast to the best of my abilities. And then what's happened over the past 3-4 months is like different podcasts have sponsored my podcast because they see all the effort that I'm putting into it. They see that it's growing. They see there's a lot of potential. The people who have sponsored me, My First Million and Arthi and Sriram's Good Time Show, I've had both of them on as guests before, or all 4 of those people on. So they know and they're familiar with my interviewing style, what I'm about, what I'm interested in. And then that got them to be like, oh, we see a future for this kid. Like, let's sponsor him. And that's been super cool. I have a course that I'm launching now on connecting with people. And so that'll be a great income source. Before that, I was doing clips for people as well, just to get involved more in the ecosystem of podcasting and figure out how I can make money off it. So I've played around with a bunch of different stuff over the years. NFTs, like I had an NFT job at one point. Like I've just done so many different things to really help grow the show.
Oh, that's really cool. Man, you had a lot of great guests on your channel, right? So a lot of people that are looking at Danny, they're like, I want to be the next Danny. I want to replicate same stuff. Well, if there's 1,000 podcasters, they're all not going to have the same amount of success as you, right? Is it possible that the place gets really oversaturated and they should like only enter the space if they're truly committed? Because you seem to be the exception, right? That's why a lot of attention is drawn to you. You got that street cred that other people don't. Not everybody can say they hosted these major guests. So what would you tell the people that are looking to get in the space thinking, this could be oversaturated or it may become oversaturated?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly thought it was oversaturated in 2020 when I started. I was like, there's so many people doing podcasts. There's so many podcasts out there. But did you know that there's only 400,000 active podcasts out there? And by active, I mean a podcast that has published an episode in the last 90 days and has at least 10 episodes. So there's only 400,000 out of the 4 million podcasts that have been created. And in comparison, there's 53 million YouTube channels. So when you look at that and you look at the potential for it, I mean, my personal take is that we're living through the audio revolution and the video revolution at the same time. Or better put, we're living through the printing press for audio and video right now. And so, yeah, there will be a lot of people who try and don't succeed. And you could have said that if I had done 200 episodes and I'd done that whole thing and then was like, all right, this didn't work, which it didn't work after 200 episodes. The audience, there was no audience. There was no, like, it worked in the sense that I was enjoying it, but it didn't work in the sense of like, it was making me money. And so I could have easily said after 200, like, all right, this is not working. So, and I could have said, this is too saturated. And I would have been right to say all those things. But I was just like, you know what? I love doing this. I'm getting value from this, even if I'm not, quote unquote, making money from it. And I kept going. And because I kept going for another 120 episodes, like now I start to see some success on the other side. And it's still not where I want to be. But something that James Altucher really helped me understand that it made sense. And I think it's worth questioning if you are on this path yourself and you're not seeing the results, is like, think about what James Altucher said, which takes 5 years to create success in any identity change. The first year is you figuring out what you're doing. Like you don't, let's say for podcasting, you don't know what you're doing and you don't know like how to do it. The second year is you connecting with the right people. Now you know, okay, I've done the thing and now the second year I can connect with the people I need to connect with. The third year, you're making money from the thing, but it's not enough to sustain a full-time living. The fourth year, you are making lots of money from the thing. The fifth year, you're wealthy from the thing. And if I think about my trajectory of like where this is going and how it's going, it's like almost following that perfectly. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And James Altucher saying that he's seen that happen time and time again in his life really helps me put into consideration, like, yeah, I am making money from my thing and it's not enough to make a full-time income, hence the supplementation of the other things, and hence being clever about like how I'm going about my business. It's like when I heard him, James Altucher, say that, I was like, okay, like that makes sense. And that helps me understand myself better and can help give other people a sense. So like maybe if you're in your fourth year and you're not making money from your thing or you don't see the potential for it to, maybe like you're not doing the right thing, or maybe you are and you just have to wait another 2 years. So it's hard to tell. Nothing would have stopped me from podcasting. Like it was inside of me. It had to come out. The times when I stopped doing podcasting, it felt like I was sick. It felt like I was down, and then I would do it and it would feel good again.
But I see there's so many similarities to what you said about podcasting and also in crypto, because there's plenty of people out there on Twitter. They're creating great content, right? And they're feeling like the market's oversaturated in that sense and how to become profitable. So by following that kind of template that you provided, I think that gives a lot better expectations as to how it goes. So putting in 2 years and knowing that it may not take off still, but you still enjoy the process where you don't see it as a waste, I think is very critical, but also important for anybody that's looking to find what they want to do. Because it's very easy to go into the shiny object syndrome, right? Where you do something for 1 year because people are really profitable and then you jump to something else and it just doesn't pan out. But what you said is like you had to do it. you were willing to sacrifice 2 years of your life, even if it didn't work out?
Because I was gaining something other than just monetary value. I was gaining the friendships and connections and relationships with people I knew were going to win big at some point in their life. Like, I just knew that the people that I was interviewing were going to change the world. And so it was beneficial to interview them and connect with them, regardless of if I was making money or not. So having something where when you lose, you're still winning is a good thing to think about when pursuing whatever you're pursuing.
Mm. So what advice would you give to, let's say, somebody that is on Twitter, is looking to really build up their brand? What template would you provide to them in order to network with people better?
So I would say a couple of things. One is like, pick out your favorite few accounts. Who are the accounts that you naturally gravitate towards and you enjoy their content? I would go through their likes and see, okay, what do the people that I like the most, what do they like? And just to have that, it's all public, it's all out there. And so that's a beneficial thing, not necessarily to copy the things that they like, but to have that in your mind of like, oh, this person that I like, this is the thing that they actually like. This could be just a beneficial practice for anybody, as well as just like understanding what's working at different times. And like that, I'm terrible at being analytical, and my friends like point out to me things that I could be doing better all the time. And they're like, listen, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, like do this better. And I love that. And so the key takeaway there is like, how can you look at your last 100 tweets and be like, which one of these, one, did I enjoy writing the most or creating the most? And two, which one of these got the best response? All the view counts are there, and you could literally just put these in a spreadsheet or just look at them and be like, all right, this was my favorite one and this is the crowd's favorite one. And I think if you have a regular practice of doing that, you'll see your account grow because you're doing more of what people like. And hopefully you don't lose yourself in that process. And that's why it's important for you to think about what you like too, because that's an important piece. So that's kind of what I would recommend, as well as just connecting and reaching out to random people that you enjoy their content. And whether that's like having them on your podcast or whether that's just like getting on a phone call with them and just talking to them, like that is helpful, because if somebody gets to know you, maybe they're going to be more likely to actually like your tweet or more likely to retweet you because they know, oh, that's an actual human being as opposed to like an AI bot or something.
Or like just a regular cartoon animal of a profile photo.
Yes,
Like,
because even after talking to you for 20 minutes now, like I have a different view in my head versus what I just pictured when I saw your avatar. Just because like by nature of spending more time with somebody, you get a deeper connection for them and you feel differently about them because you have more context. And so whenever I get the opportunity to go to a meetup, to go to an event, to go to a dinner party, I'm like, yes, because like this is going to give more people more context for who I am. And it's going to give more people more understanding of what I mean when I tweet certain things.
let me ask you this. What if a viewer were to see your face, wouldn't know who you are, but they just like kind of like saw you in a random clip, right? You got Iman Ghazi, he's posting up these great little shorts, and you're like, your face kind of just pops up. Do you think that subconsciously gets in people's minds where maybe 6 months down the line, they're looking like, oh, who's this Danny guy with the podcast? Do you think that has some benefit there?
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, like, we don't remember everything consciously, but like it's stored somewhere. And it's like, I remember my first reaction to Joe Rogan in 2016, 2017. I was just like, well, who is this guy? Like, why am I going to listen to him? Why do I care? And then it was like the third clip, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty interesting. This fifth, I was like, yo, like, this is awesome. Like, let me check out the full podcast. And now, 5 years later, I listened to the full thing for his show because he gained my level of appreciation and respect for his craft. And guess what? I knew who he was before from Fear Factor, from the things that he'd done on television. And so it just goes to show that it takes time to create a friendship and connection with somebody. And it takes many years. Like, I've been doing this for 2.5 years. Imagine me doing this for 10. Do you think I'm going to have more relationships, more connections, more friendships, more with people who I don't know and also with people I know? Like, of course I will. And so at a certain point, it becomes undeniable. And it's like, how can we play that long game and understand? I think what really helped me is like understanding my own customer journey with Rogan and that being the basis for how I'm going about my business today. It's like, I hope I'm putting out like 10 clips a day 5 years from now. Like, I hope like I'm still in the ecosystem pushing like that, because it's like, that's how people get to know you. That's how people understand you better. And now look, what Rogan has done has become so successful that people create clips that who don't know him for their own accounts to benefit him. And it's like, it's so valuable that people have created something based on what he's created for themselves.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And that's good to know from like the Twitter aspect of how you said, like, you can put a face to the name, and the value of that is you can't measure it. In fact, a little quick story about me. I went to a crypto conference in Quantum, Miami, and Danny, I'm gonna tell you, it was costly for me. Okay, I paid. I really thought about it. I was like, do I want to put down this much money? And I went, and I got to network and talk to people. I came back, wrote a thread, and somebody mentioned like, so basically, it wasn't worth it. I'm like, you didn't grasp the concept of how valuable these connections are. Just like one thought that somebody said just changes your mindset. So I love how you're saying like you are doing anything you can to go to these dinner parties, to these events, because that really builds up.
Yeah, it builds trust, it builds connection, and like I haven't paid for any event that I've been to. I'm trying to think in a while, but it's not about paying. Like for me at least, it's just about like I'm paying with my time, and that's the most valuable asset really. And so like by all means, I'm sure if you pay like and you go to events, like the quality of people are going to increase potentially. But yeah, man, I think just like literally just meeting people on the street or like connecting with people in your city or your town or whatever is such a beneficial practice. And that's why it's like wherever I can, I'm trying to meet somebody, connect with somebody, and learn.
All right, Danny, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. So you talked about really focusing on the brand, putting in like 2 years, and you had a really nice situation with low living expenses. But what if somebody's on the flip side where they're like, you know what, Danny, I got 3 kids at home. They're relying on me for a source of income. I want to pursue my passion. I want to put in the time to network with people on crypto, Twitter, and elsewhere, but I'm not in that situation to follow the passion. I got to do something else, and my time is limited. What would be your message to people in that situation?
My message to people in that situation is look, like you got to figure out for yourself what the best thing to do is. I can't relate to that or like I can relate to it in the sense if I can think about it, but I can't imagine how much different my mindset would be. How I think about it though is like, I'd want my kids to know that their dad was following something that that he loved and that lit him up every day. And even if that didn't equate to income in the beginning, like their sense of knowing that I was doing something that I like loved would instill that same hope in that for them as well. And so I know that my friend Jacob Turner is a former Major League Baseball player, and he had kids and a wife, and he stopped playing baseball, and then he started working for free somewhere. And I'm going to ask him about it later today for our podcast episode, but it's just like, what was that like when you have 2 kids, you start working for free for a year because you love finances and financial planning and like to figure out if that's your path? Like, how'd you do that? Why did you do that? Was there any doubt like that it wasn't going to work out? And obviously he's coming at it from a different perspective, being a former baseball player, and I'm sure he was set financially, but just the idea of like, he could have played baseball forever and he didn't love baseball. And so I don't think it's like, you think about a sports player, you think like every sports player loves the job and that seems like fun, that seems like the dream. And to hear like he didn't enjoy it or like he was done with it is interesting and insightful. And he still went back to square zero of like, I'm going to make no money. And so for me, I view my own happiness as like the North Star of like success in life. And so people have other North Stars, and you know, it's different for each generation. It's different for each circumstance. So that's kind of how I think about it.
So then let's say somebody's been doing it for 2 years and they're not sure still whether they want to do it. Do you think like they should keep on like tweaking it, or yeah, what would it's such an investment to put in your time and be like, hey, this is going to be 2 years. I'm doing this. And I feel like a lot of people, they don't even know if that's their true calling.
Yeah.
It's such a mindset shift to be like, I'm going to try this for 2 years and it may work out or it may not. That is just.
But I never looked at it like that. I never looked at it like I'm going to do this for 2 years. And if it doesn't work, then whatever. Like I just was like, I love podcasting, or rather I love connecting with human beings through this medium and posting it. It wasn't like, if I try this, then maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. It was just like, I enjoy this, full stop. Like I'm going to figure out a way to make this work over a long enough time horizon. So yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but it's like someone like playing the guitar and then being like, I'm going to play the guitar for 2 years. And if it, at the end of the 2 years, it doesn't work out, like I'm going to stop playing the guitar. No, I just love playing the guitar. So that's how I view it.
Well, I'm gonna want to talk about that in the next portion so much because oh, that's such a deep topic. But I'm gonna circle it back to then the crypto and also podcasting in terms of like revenue, because a lot of money is going into, you said radio ads, probably TV, and there's a lot because a lot of people are still watching it.
Yeah.
How does the audience circulate then to crypto and podcasting? Do you think that people are grandfathered into their favorite source of medium? So if they've watched TV up until they're 40, they're going to keep on doing that regardless? Or do you think that there's like a gray zone where people will convert over?
I think it's both. I mean, I think that nobody expected grandparents to get on Facebook as soon as they did, but then they wanted to see their grandchildren, so they just hopped on, right? I think if it becomes worth it for people, people will do it. And the problem is, like with crypto, it's like, it's not worth it for my grandparents to buy a Bitcoin or to buy an Ethereum token yet. You know, like I'm sure there will come a time, it might be 3 years from now, it might be 10, it might be 20, but like there will be a time where it makes sense for the older generation to get involved in some respect, but it's got to be worth it. They have to view it as worth it. And so, yeah, that's what I think about it. But in terms of podcasting and media, it's like my grandma listens to my podcast. You know, she would never listen to a podcast before, but because she wants to support me and she thinks it, she looks at that and is like, okay, like if I want to communicate with Danny in a sense, like I want to have context for him and his life and what he's doing, so therefore I'm going to check this out. And so 1% I think of my audience is over the age of 60, and I'm pretty sure it's like my grandma, my aunts, stuff like that. And that's all good. But I think that it's just a new medium. And so people will gravitate towards it over a long enough time horizon. And what's cool is like all the people who are 20s, 30s, 40s, those will be the 6-year-olds soon enough. And their kids will be listening to podcasts as their primary medium.
So as you're growing in size, how do you really focus on your audience? Because back when you're smaller content or a smaller audience, it was really easy to connect more directly. But now that you're climbing up, I'm sure you're getting hit with a lot more messages, a lot more people, and then you have to be more selective with your time and how you interact.
Yeah, this has been a really difficult challenge for me to navigate, and I've been trying to figure out the best way to do it because I did pride myself on like responding to every message, and now it just become impossible to do because that would be an 80-hour work week by itself. And so it is something I try to hit as many as I possibly can. It still like pains me a little bit that I can't respond to everyone, and I also have to understand like this is part of growing, and this is what I ask for when I attempt to hit scale, is like I'm not going to be able to respond to every message. So yeah, it's hard for me personally, but I just reach out to people who have done it before. Thankfully, the network involves a lot of people who have been through the same challenge, and just reach out to them and ask how they did it and navigated through it. I've even tweeted about it before, like, how do I go through this? And I've got some great, thoughtful responses.
Yeah, and that's great. What's really cool is that by recording it in your podcast, but then also your own personal journey, people can then actually take a look at that template and say, all right, where was Danny at year 1, year 2, year 3? What challenges was he going through? What was he doing? Can I apply that same strategy to their stuff? So that wraps up part 1 of this interview. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on Twitter. Danny, what is the best way for people to follow what you do?
The Danny Miranda podcast is the #1 way to do so. I like to say that the Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube, those will all come and go, but the podcast will stay over a long enough time horizon. The Danny Miranda podcast, wherever you listen.
Beautiful. So I'll be leaving links in the description so the audience can follow along. Make sure to check out part 2 of this interview because I'm going to be asking Danny more about his podcast, his connections to these big names, and actually take a deeper discussion about his life lessons. See you guys.